guys, this is Sophia and welcome to another YouTube video. This video is obviously very different from what I have filmed and shared in the past. I've kind of been thinking about doing these kinds of videos for a while, mostly because I feel like I do like sharing these tips and tricks on TikTok, but I feel like for TikTok and even on Instagram, it feels kind of a more headline situation, but sometimes I really do want to get into like the nitty-gritty detail of the tip itself. So that is why we're filming this video, and I actually did poll my Instagram stories on which two topics that people would want to see me film first, and this is the topic that won out. So today we're going to talk about my 5 tips on how I've managed to fix, quotation marks because I feel like it's never going to be fully fixed, but how I fixed my body image. So without further ado, let's just get right into tip number 1. So the first tip is, I think, actually quite difficult, and it does take a lot of time and a lot of patience, but it is to unlearn the incorrect truths we learn about food, or we have about food. So a good example of a truth we need to unlearn is the idea that you have to work to be able to eat food. And what I mean by work is like be active. For example, going for a run so you can have a slice of bread later, or going to the gym so you can have a cheat meal later, or even the definition of a cheat meal or junk food kind of implies that there are certain foods that are good and certain foods that are bad. And in my opinion, any food that you enjoy to eat is on the table. Just pay attention to your body and exercise good judgment for when you are full. Because at the end of the day, it's your body, you're the one feeding it, you're the one making those decisions, and you're the only one who should be making those decisions. So that is why I think we should all start thinking about what kind of truths have we learned about food that might have been imparted on us by society, by our parents, by our teachers. So an example of this tip is when I go home, sometimes I might not be active. Like I might just be sitting in my bed, kind of doing work or not doing anything, just kind of chilling until my parents are home and then they make me dinner. But sometimes I'm really active. Sometimes I go out, I'm with friends, like I don't come home until dinner time. In either scenarios, whenever I sit down and eat with my parents, at least in the last few years, every time I go to get a second bowl of rice, sometimes they'll be like, aren't you full yet? Or why do you need to eat so much? You didn't do anything today. Sometimes they'll ask me, like when I'm out with my friends, like, oh, what did I have for lunch? And I would say like I had sushi or ramen or something, like whatever I had. And then if I go for a second bowl, they'll be like, well, didn't you eat a lot for lunch? All of that is completely irrelevant, because at the end of the day, when you are sitting down for dinner, you are hungry as your body says you are. It has nothing to do with what you ate earlier. It has nothing to do with how active you were. It's literally how hungry your body is, and that has no rhyme or reason. Sometimes there is, I'm not saying there isn't. Sometimes when you're traveling, like you're going out every day, you're walking for like 8 to 10 hours a day, you're going to be more hungry at night because you've expended a lot of energy. And I'm not saying that that's not a thing, but I'm saying you don't need to have expended a lot of energy to feel like you are allowed to eat at night. The second tip that is also pretty practical, it's a little bit more practical than the first tip actually, is to unfollow the accounts that make you automatically compare yourself to them. So that can be, physically, that can be their life, that can be, I don't know, their education or whatever. If you're scrolling on social media and you see a post by, let's say, Kylie Jenner. So with Kylie Jenner, I actually don't compare my body to hers. I actually compare my life to hers. So what I mean by that is she's like 21, 22, and I'm like 26. And sometimes when I see how successful she is, I automatically get in the mindset,
oh my god, I'm 26, I'm 4 years older than her, why aren't I as successful?
And in reality, there are a lot of factors that play into that, right? So she was born into a more well-off family. She had access to money before, like when she was a kid, so she could have access to all these things, to all these events, to all these people who could change her. And so she has access to all of that versus I didn't, but sometimes I would still fall down that wormhole and there's nothing I can do about it. So I don't follow her on Instagram at all. It does not work for me. And even if you follow someone for aspiration, be careful of what you are aspiring to. For example, like if you're following Kylie Jenner to be like, okay, I want to be as successful as her, like maybe financially one day. That's fine, and that's definitely a very realistic aspiration in our society. But like I said, she did have resources growing up that we all didn't. So just be careful of what you are following other people for. I will say sometimes you can follow someone and just feel completely neutral. So a good example is I follow Michelle Phan on YouTube and Instagram and TikTok. I'm basically everywhere. And I'm neutral. Whenever I see her post, I don't think of anything. I don't think,
oh, like she has a better life than me, she's more successful than me. I don't think, oh, I want her body, I want her life.
I don't think any of those things. I just think, oh, it's nice to see her face on my feed. So in that scenario, right, for me, it's okay for me to follow Michelle Phan. But if I did one day change my mindset around seeing her posts, I would immediately unfollow her. And even though that would make me sad to unfollow her, I know that that only benefits me in the long run. Be wary of what works for you, and don't be afraid to unfollow people who no longer provide value to you, because that's okay. Like, you can stop being friends with someone in real life. You can unfollow other people on social media too. There's nothing wrong with that. The third tip is a little less practical because it requires you to do some inward thinking. And that is to introspect and think about why you have a particularly maybe warped sense of body image than you should. So a good question to ask you is, what is your trigger? If your trigger is to see like really thin model people, whether it's on your social media, whether it's on like physical advertisements around you, or in, you know, movies and TV shows, know why that is your trigger, right? Like for me, that is my trigger because I grew up in an age in the 90s and early 2000s where that was the ideal body standard. So my trigger actually isn't, you know, looking like Kim Kardashian, because by the time that body type kind of came into my worldview, I was already pretty much set. But seeing thin models or actresses on my screen, like, takes me to a bad place if I'm not in a good place, if that makes sense. Like, it makes me feel worse about myself. That was the expectation that was always put on me by my parents. My parents would point to the TV screen of like a drama we were watching together and be like, that's the perfect body, or that's how you should want to look, or that's how I used to look, so you should look like that too, hypothetically. So by them saying those things to me, that made me look at certain dramas different ways, right? Like, so sometimes now, even when I'm watching like a new drama that I've never seen with them, never seen before, I will still hear those words, those sentences at the back of my head, and that will just freak me out. And when I get to that place, I immediately stop watching the drama, or I start focusing on something else, like I'm on my phone. And that has always really helped me, which is to find a distraction. The fourth tip is to stop tying your worth to your body. That is hard to do. Like, and if that's the first thing you thought of when I said that, I agree. I feel the exact same way. But the way I've chosen to think about it is like this. My body has literally nothing to do with my personality. It has nothing to do with how I treat other people. It has nothing to do with how I talk to other people. And it has nothing to do with my achievements in life, like my tangible achievements, right? So when I started entering the real world, going for job interviews and stuff.
This is all when I could do like in-person job interviews, obviously.
My mom would always say to me right before a job interview, dress nice, you know, or like wear this to make yourself look thinner, and not this that makes you look fat. Another example is when I was unemployed because of COVID, I spent like an afternoon taking headshots. I sent a couple of my favorites to my mom, and she was like, that one makes you look fat, that one makes you look thin, why don't you smile? Like, you know, those kinds of things. I realized that literally my employers or potential employers did not care what I looked like They just cared whether or not I could do the job. Another example is my boyfriend, right? Like, my boyfriend fell in love with me because of my mind, because of my personality, because of how bubbly I am, because he enjoys talking to me and hang out with me. It has nothing to do with my physicality, and he should know the best about that, right? Because he met me at my thinnest. He knew me and loved me at my fattest, and he loves me now. So that's a great example of how your body has nothing to do with your worth or who you are as a person. It's literally just a placeholder for you existing on this earth. That's it. The fifth tip is to let go of the idea that you can achieve a dream or perfect body. Body types or ideal body types change every decade. There's a great graphic out there, which I'll see if I can find so I can insert it on the screen, that kind of talks about the ideal body type in every decade or every other decade. Right now, the ideal body type is super hourglass, like big hips, like flat tummy, like big butt, basically Kim Kardashian. But like I said really early on in the video, I grew up with the body type of like just stick thin. Because body types change, and also like body types most of the time is more genetic than anything else. Like, I'm born hourglass, like that's just kind of how I grew up, and I can't really do much to change that. Like, obviously I can, do specific workouts and I can make myself less hourglass if I wanted to, but if I was to, like, let's say actively try to lose weight, like the first place I would lose weight would be my waist, because I'm naturally just hourglass like that, and I know I'm very lucky and I understand that. But I would honestly not be surprised if in like 20 years it's like the door, I don't know what it's called correctly because I've just been seeing this on TikTok, but people call it like a door body type. I don't even know, so I'm sorry if this offends you. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that is the new body type that's in, right? Like, it literally changes all the time, and I literally don't know if there's any other way I can say it. And knowing that it can change has really helped me. If I had tried to look like a model from like the 90s, early 2000s, there's no way I can look like Kim Kardashian now, because that's just, I can't change my body like that. Like, it's not that easy, and that can actually become really harmful for you internally, like your organs. Your body is perfect the way it is. Maybe it's not perfect in other people's eyes, but those are the people that you don't need to deal with, right? Like, if someone is judging you for your body, bye. And I know sometimes that's easier said than done. I understand that and recognize that, but sometimes it's a mindset thing, right? Like, with my parents, obviously I'm not gonna like cut them out of my life completely. They're my parents and I love them and I respect them and I wanna be there for them in their old age. But what I can do is I can move to the opposite side of the country. I can only talk to them once a week. I can only go back and hypothetically visit them once a year. So, like, there are things you can do to put distance between you and whoever is stressing you out and making you feel like you're not enough. But I hope these 5 tips will help you. I hope that none of you take these advice or me as a licensed professional, because I'm not a therapist, I'm not a licensed anything. But I am just sharing these tips and advice that I've kind of lived through with you in the hopes that it can help you go in the direction you want to go with your own life and your own body image. So I hope these tips help, and if you have any tips that you're willing to share, please let other people know in the comments. But otherwise, I will see you next Monday for another video. Bye.